Good evening and welcome to another installment of Let's Talk Politics, a special program brought to you by the People's Progressive Party Civic. I am your host, Micheal Gordon, and we continue to examine the issues of the day. I have two very special guests with me. First, I'm going to go with beauty first. I would like to introduce a very old colleague and friend of mine, Miss Suelle Findlay Williams. And of course, joining us from New York is Mr. Ossie Rogers, very popular radio personality in New York. Lady, gentlemen, I welcome you both to tonight's program. Let's talk politics.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mike.
very much, Michael. Looking forward to talking politics.
Okay, there are a number, and I'm going to start in a very unorthodox manner. There are a number of issues that I want us to discuss. I want to revisit some comments made by Vice President, General Secretary of our party, Dr. Barrett Jagdeo, on some issues being raised by the parliamentary opposition. But lady, gentlemen, I have to get to a very ticklish subject. It's both ticklish and using the Guyanese paradigm. I believe it is funny, and it's also a mystery. Where is the AFC? Whatever happened to the Alliance for Change? Did they vanish into thin air?
They might be on vacation.
It's a very strong point. Ossie, what are your thoughts? I know the Alliance to Change prides itself in purporting to be this imaginary third political force in Guyana. As far as I'm concerned, it's birthed and it remains in Congress Place. But it also prides itself in having these chapters in New York and other areas where there's a significant Guyanese diaspora. Your own view. I'm going to begin with you, Ossie. Whatever happened to the famous, infamous Alliance to Change?
Well, Michael, I'm happy that you asked me this question because I've been asking this question, and people in the diaspora here, in Brooklyn and New York, Brooklyn, New York, and Brooklyn and Queens, New York, we have the largest group of Guyanese living that outside of Guyana. And I would recall that the Alliance for Change leader, Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan, visited the United States, came to Queens, and they had a they had a function, and they invited people to come out and listen to the then I think he was vice president then, Kemraj Ramjatan, and you had about five persons who went inside to listen to Kemraj Ramjatan. Mind you, it was free food and everything in there. And you had more than 100 persons outside picketing Mr. Ramjatan. So that tells you very much that the Alliance for Change is there. But we have to realize that the Alliance for Change came into being because of some selfish men and women. The Alliance for Change came into being, Mr. Moses Nagamutu, because he was not able to become the presidential candidate of the People's Progressive Party. He could not be a team leader, so he left. Kemraj Ramjatan, the same thing. Can't play in a team, so he left. And let's hop on the other side. The guy that, Rafael Trackman, couldn't play in the team, tried to become the leader of the PNC, and he left. So you had selfish people who really could not play in a team, who left and went and formed something that they call an Alliance for Change. And people believe them because people say, let us give them the benefit of the doubt. And they performed okay at two general elections. And because of that, they were able to trick the people and dope them. And then they show their true colors. Because people, the Guyanese people decide we'll give them a chance. We'll see what they're made of. A few people gravitated towards them. They were, they knew how to con people. So people gravitated towards them. And this is what happened. When the Alliance for Change went into negotiations with the PNC, under the disguise they call themselves APNU. I don't know what partnership that is, but when they went into talks with the APNU to form this coalition, mind you, none of their leaders, they did not go with a party platform or anything. They did not go to discuss, listen, we're coming. This is what we want to do if we get into government to build Guyana. They went to bargain who will get what position. That tells you something about the Alliance for Change. Who will get what position? Some of them did not get the position they want, so you never saw them again. You never heard from them again. Some of them got the positions they wanted. They formed the government in 2015. They got the positions they wanted, and they just sat down there. They drove around Guyana like kings and queens, in their big fancy vehicles and outriders and stuff like that, and failed to deliver any goods for the Guyanese people. All right. So you see, then is when you saw clearly that all they were interested in is getting power and who got what position. So they didn't really care about the Guyanese people. So they got their positions in 2020. The people vote them out. They make sure they stick with their senior partners and try to commit a crime on the Guyanese people. They were condemned at every juncture. They were interrupted in executing that crime. And because of that, you see, they gone back into their corners. When's the last time you heard from Moses Nagamutu? When's the last time you heard from many members in the Alliance for Change? They're all quiet. As a matter of fact, they're claiming that they have a chapter here, but the chapter is just one lady. There's just one lady in Queens that still identify herself as the Alliance for Change. There's nobody else in Queens, New York, that
So
identify themselves.
technically, also you could refer to it as a paragraph, not a chapter. So there
Yes.
remains a paragraph in New York, or a sentence.
Not. I wouldn't even give it a paragraph, a word,
Okay.
one word.
So your body language tells me that you concur, you agree with some of or the sentiment shared by Ossie.
Yes, I'm thinking of relationship. They entered this very, very unhealthy relationship. There was no real plan, no plan for the future, definitely no plan for the people of Guyana. And that was clear, very, very clear. It was very, very evident, as we all know, and within the first, what is it, months, 2 months, you raise their own salaries and so on. We know the story. I believe if there was truly a unity of vision, a unity of purpose, the marriage would still be ongoing even today. And given the fact that they are dropping out, people are, well, as you said, Michael, it's a paragraph, right? Very, 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 very important. And that is clear to me now more than ever that there was no true plan for the people of this country. There was no true plan, real plan for Guyanese to lift Guyanese up and to move this country forward. It was all about gaining power, getting the benefits of that power, helping themselves, and then moving on.
I want to examine it seemed to be a by the wayside discussion. Starting this program discussing as a by the way, where is the AFC today? But when you examine it in the context of politics of today, in the context of the performance of the opposition today, and you back up a bit to not only the performance of individual ministers within within the APNU AFC administration, but when you look at the performance of the administration as a whole, and you tie it into an embarrassing election loss resulting in an embarrassing attempt at thwarting the will of the people, of the will of the Guyanese people at the 2020 polls, and being seen in the eyes of the world. In the eyes of the world, the APNU AFC, let's make a mistake about it. Let's disabuse of our minds from any notion that there is some semblance of the diplomacy about this. The APNU AFC has been seen as a bunch of political misfits. They play themselves in the eyes of the world in 2020 in their attempt to rig the elections as a bunch of political misfits. having underperformed in political misfits, having underperformed in government from 2015 essentially to December 2018. Then you squatted in government from 2018 to 2020. Significant underperformance, no tangible developmental initiatives, an economy where the traditional sectors had been were subsiding. The performance of the traditional sectors was subsiding, and an economic plan that seemed, for all intents and purposes, entirely dependent on an emerging oil and gas sector. There is nothing tangible to talk about now. And I believe it's strategic that we began to talk about the Alliance for Change, and then we progress this discussion to the performance of the APNU AFC in government. Now, the People's Progressive Party has been returned to government by the people of Guyana. Perhaps, and for all intents and purposes, based on what I've seen, the people could not wait to return the PPP to power, to political power, or to government in Guyana. Now that the PPP has more than performed in its 8 months in government, outperformed the APNU FC Alliance in its 3 legitimate years in government. And that's another subject I want us to discuss perhaps another night. Because based on the actions of Mr. Lowenfield and company, I'm not sure APNU FC won the 2015 elections. But it's a subject for another discussion. However, there seems to be nothing tangible or nothing of substance that can come out of the thoughts, out of the mouths of APNU AFC activists. There is nothing tangible, there is nothing significant, there is no track record of repute for them to refer to. So they have fallen back on the whole notion of race. And I want to play, I'm going to ask my assistant to play a comment. Some remarks made by Vice President, former President, Vice President Dr. Bar Jagdeo on the current state of mind, the current state of play with the APNU AFC as it relates to relevance. And irrespective of whatever you do purportedly or really in service to the people of a country, relevance is key. And where the APNU AFC is concerned, in my own view, irrelevance is paramount. And I'm going to play this clip. Just let's look at this clip and we'll take the discussions from there.
Because APNU, as we have recognized, has nothing else to talk about, no other political strategy than racism. They have had no track record of achievement. They have left the track record as one of the most corrupt governments ever seen in this hemisphere. They're bereft of vision. They are in a confused state within their own party, that is the PNC. They have lost the respect of citizens across the country. They have no momentum. And they're hoping to build momentum around racism again, because recognizing it's an emotive issue. And they hope that the racism, because it appeals to emotion, will dampen the massive development that's taking place under the PPP, so that even an Afro-Guyanese community that will benefit significantly, or an individual, would say, hold on a minute, but still they're racist. That's what they're hoping to instill in people. And so this is why every day, if you look at any program, it could be Sherrod Duncan, the Rickford Burr, Harman, Norton, and anytime they appear, Baku, whatever they call it, the central theme is racism. So the kidnapping is just a variant of the racism because all people are kidnapped in Guyana again. They're being disappeared. PPP is disappearing young black youths because this is a racist PPP government. That is how it comes together. It starts off in a benign way. Oh, somebody is being kidnapped. But eventually it ends up to support the same narrative of racism that they're pursuing. It's totally invented. Invented. The people, the few followers who they are dear, hardcore followers, many of whom were corrupt and beneficiaries of the largest when they were there, replicate this news over and over. That's their talking point. And so this rumor, the fiction becomes fact in the minds of many people. And they don't stop to check whether it's true. And so now Guyana suddenly is at young black Guyanese being kidnapped. Absolutely false. But that took over social media for a very long time and it's dominated their circles.
Suelle, Ossie, I don't think any of us could have put it more eloquently than the vice president. However, it is a serious issue that I particularly continue to pay attention to because there's an old adage which says if you tell a lie often enough, it becomes believable. And I think in essence that paraphrases what the vice president said. It's I shudder to think. I shudder to think how in one's mind one truly labels him or herself a patriot or a champion of the people when your modus operandi is centered in disruption and division. Suel?
Yes. It's really, really, it's just sad. It is so sad that the opposition, APNU, AFC, if they're, I don't know where they are, um, they constantly, let me say this. If they can control how you think about yourself and how you see the people around you, then they've got you, and that is what they've been doing all along. A pin drops. Oh, it's because you're black, or it's because you're Indian, or because of something else. It's never about the issue, and I have found it very, very petty, to always refer to race and to hold people in a place where they can't see beyond the race issue. They can't move on, and every time the country begins to move on, every time or the young generation move on, and they're trying to build Guyana, trying to do something with their own lives, you bring them back to race. Or you remember this, and they go back. It's just a vicious cycle. There's no real substance. There's no evidence, and I have to say this as a newcomer, if I'm still considered that. It's not what I have found personally. That's not what I have found personally. And sometimes as young people, you've got to ask your own questions. We have to think for ourselves, and I cannot say this and stress on this fact enough. Stop believing what these people are saying. That's the only platform. Well, I don't know if it's even a platform, but that's the only card they have. They're always going to play it to keep all of us oppressed. It's a state of oppression. That's their card, and it's pathetic, for people who exude and think, who were supposed to be um, helping us to build policies and to craft policies to take the country forward and to really help Guyana, who have said over and over that better must come and this will happen and all of this will happen. And at the end of the day, nothing. It's just
You,
really
you
bad.
seem you seem to be very emotional about this issue, so
For me, for the life of me, I cannot fathom. I don't understand. I don't understand, and I'm trying to not say certain things because only certain people and only certain types of people do this to other people. You have to be evil or something has to be wrong with your mind to be holding people in this type of oppression. It is sad. How can we move? How can you say you love country and love your people and you have all these plans and vision for young people, and every time something goes wrong, oh, it's because you're black, oh, it's because you're Indian, oh, it's because red and whatever they use they say. It's just pathetic.
Ossie.
Well, like you said, Michael, the vice president put it very well, and I would want to echo those sentiments. You see, before the partnership got an opportunity to, however they got an opportunity to lead Guyana in 2015, they were able to sing certain songs constantly. They created a scapegoat in Jack Dio, the vice president, former president, by painting everything, throwing everything negative at Jack Dio. Oh, Jack Dio's this, Jack Dio's that, Jack Dio did this, the PP is the worst thing for you, and all this kind of stuff. That was their talking point before they became government. You know, um, if the PP ever, if we ever get into power, we're gonna jail them. They're so corrupt. They're thieves. They're bandits. They involve in murders. They involve in all this kind of stuff, right? So some people believe them, and some people pin their hopes on them. That all right. So I believe what you're saying is true, and we're gonna vote for you and put you into government. However, they got into government, and like you said, Michael, I am rethinking the victory, the 2015 victory, because it is the same actors that tried to steal the 2020 elections that were there in 2015. What, they just suddenly became thieves? I beg to differ. I don't believe that. Anyway, so they were singing these songs about all these different things. Oh, the PP is so bad, and when we get into power, we're gonna jail them and stuff like that. They got into power, and that song, they stopped singing that song because it was not true. They had nothing to go off of. You build a case based on evidence. You could sing from the top of your voice all the time, but once you get into this, you get your hands on power, and you fail to institute any charges against anyone. You fail to prove that it is Jack Dio who used to get up out of his bed and go and kidnap people and kill people. You fail to prove all these things. So you can't go back now after the people saw you for what you really are, liars who tricked them to get into power to enrich yourselves and your family. So the people saw that. You can't use that card again. It's the same people. It's just 5 years. Well, it's just not even a year yet we're talking about that the PPP is in power, so they can't use that. They have nothing else to talk about. They can't boast about their track record. They can't say, "Oh, we built this and we built that." All they could boast about they built is two arch and two overpass and a
Or that they
monstrosity at Durban Park, a wooden's nest at Durban Park. That's all they could build: two arch, two overpass, and a wooden's nest. So they can't boast about they build anything or anything like that. So what else is there to talk about? What are they going to tell people again? Oh, give us another chance so we could go in and try again. People are not going to believe them. So the only
But
thing that they
Ossie, let me jump in here. Why
hmm,
not give them another chance? Excuse me. When former
like,
when no let me continue here. When the former president, Mr. Granger, had all these lofty plans in his back pocket.
yes. So
So
yeah.
we
So
we had a back pocket strategy.
Michael, now you putting me in a realm where I'd be able I could talk all night. Granger had all the plans. all the plans. Oh man, we're going to create jobs. As a matter of fact, when I left Guyana, there was still a sideboard close to the parliament around Demico House area where it had Granger and Moses Nagamutu picture in it and it says job for young people. That sign was up there when I left Guyana the last time I was there. And when he got into power, you remember what he told the young people? Oh, it's not the government place to find jobs to the people. And you could go sell plant and chip and cook up rice and whatever. Those are the jobs that he was talking about that he had in his back pocket. And you're right, Michael. It was a back pocket strategy where anybody just get up anytime and decide that, okay, I'm going to do this. The Minister of Health just get up and I'm going to do this. There was no strategic planning or anything like that. That is why you see you had many ministers in the APNU government that you never saw them except when they're driving around. If they're going to New Trivan to buy food and bully people that they got to park in the reserve parking area because they named minister, or they just drove around going around the country and just making a whole host of empty talks. But they weren't able to deliver because they went into government with no vision. They were just talking. Everybody just jump up on the platform, say what they wanted to say, and then it formed part of the AAP and new AFC strategy. So when they got into power, there was no plan of action. So that's why they did nothing. They built two overpass and two arch, and they said that that's development. Guyana develop, the good life for all.
I think you're deprived. You're before. Sorry, Suelle. You're depriving the private sector. Ossie, the arches were built by two very large companies in Guyana. So we
Okay.
cannot we cannot wrongly attribute the arches to the Granger administration. But in
So
fairness to the but no, however, in fairness to the Granger administration, I believe it was about 3 or 4 overpasses, even though they're not utilized. It was 3 or 4, not 2. So it is 4 underutilized arches. So earlier we're going to make a point.
Yeah, no, Nikki, that's correct. Like I said before, it's just pure emotions, and they will continue to play on our emotions, people's emotions, because there's no real evidence. Um, just the recent, persons were reported missing, but they went back home. But the opposition, they're not even saying that these persons went back home. They said, "Oh well, the people start again," and so on. So it's fear tactic. They get you afraid. They control your emotions, control how you think and how you feel about yourself for their own gain. And even then, as an opposition, they are failing. So I don't know. Maybe they should just put up their gloves, hang their hat, and call it quits. And
On the
perhaps this time,
note
yes, go
on
ahead.
the note of fear mongering, I want us to have some discussions tonight on the most recent crime figures released. And again, as both of you rightly pointed out, and this also piggybacks on a comment made by the vice president. I believe stoking public fear is paramount on the agenda of APNU-FC as part of its strategy to remain somewhat relevant. And especially in social media, in addition to the claims of alleged kidnappings, there were and there continues to be the playing up of an increase in crime. Now, one cannot bury their heads in the sand. Crime has not stopped on the People's Progressive Party. And David Granger would have you believe that crime did not exist when he was president. And the figures prove otherwise. On the point of the figures continue to prove the leaders of the PNC wrong, because the most recent figures released show that between January 2021 and at the end of March, I believe, 2021, there have been decreases in the various types of crimes. And I want us to highlight some of them and to talk about some of them because let make no mistake, let's be clear about the reality on the ground. And let's look at, for example, overall there were 450 serious crimes from January 1 to March 31, 2021. 450 serious crimes. 450 serious crimes from January, the beginning of January to the end of March, is a representation of a 34, roughly 35% decrease in crimes over January 1 to March 31, 2020. Now, there is always that argument, but when you look on Facebook, when you look online, you see this happening, that happening. And yes, those are the very church boys, quote unquote, to whom the Mr. Granger and his supporters defend. However, more CCTV cameras and more visibility of these incidents happening is not, cannot be cannot be a yardstick of measurement for whether or not there has been a decrease or an increase in crimes. People are putting up more cameras. These incidents are being recorded more. There are more cell phones. People are more social media savvy in Guyana. The slightest thing happens, people take out their cell phone and they film. The CCTV cameras are capturing stuff. The bandits are careless. They're not looking for whether or not there are cameras at this spot and so on. And I'm happy that they are. However, it is not indicative, it's not a representation of an increase in crimes or much less serious crimes. And I further say there was a decrease in the numbers, there was a decrease in numbers for all categories of serious crimes. From January 31 to January 1 to March 31, 2020, in the corresponding period this year, there has been a decrease this year. And let's look at some of the categories before I invite you guys to delve in. Some of the categories: murder decreased from 41 in 2020 to 32 in 2021. And we would all agree that we wish it would be less. We would all agree we would wish it didn't exist. But the reality, it has decreased. From January 1, 2020 to the end of March 2020 to the corresponding period this year. Robbery under arms. This is significant because many people would argue, based on what they've been seeing on social media, that robbery increasing. And the Guyana Police Force has to be challenged, has to be continued to be challenged. There has to be continued calls for attempts and initiatives to decrease incidents of armed robberies. But robbery under arms moved from 240 in 2020 under the period under review, during the period under review, from 240 robbery under arms to 142 in 2021. Robbery aggravation moved from 24 in 2020 to 5 in 2021 during the period under review. Break and enter and larceny from 221 in 2020 to 160 in 2021. Larceny from the person from 39 in 2020 to 11 in 2021 during the period under review. Robbery with violence from 31 in 2020 to 17 in 2021 during the period under review. Burglary from 45 to 16 during the period under review. Robbery from 9 in 2020 to 6 in 2021 during the period under review. Colleagues, those are some very interesting figures that the social media activity tend to dispel. But it is not, as I said, it should not be used. Social media, what has been captured because of the advancement of technology, should not be used as a measuring stick for whether or not there has been an increase or decrease in crimes. Your comments?
Well, Michael, I wanna agree with you by adding that adding to something to support your argument, which is what we have here in the United States. We see all these police shootings, all these unfortunate situations that you see now on social media and on television because of cell phone cameras and stuff like that. But these police killings and stuff like that did not start today. There were tons and tons of people here in the United States where who died at the hands of police and stuff like that back in the days when there were no cell phones. So that lends support to your point that not because you're now seeing it on social media means that there's an increase. And crime is on the decrease, and rightfully so, and thank God for that, because the criminals are in Guyana are now being put on the alert, are now of the opinion that they no longer have a friend in the office of the president. The criminals in Guyana, they're realizing that they can no longer count on politicians to give them support and cover when they go and execute those crimes on Guyanese. We cannot say that for the David Granger administration, because let us remember it was the David Granger administration, or David Granger himself, who said that you as a licensed firearm holder, if you shoot a bandit, you should be charged and placed before the court. Don't shoot them, bring them in. Meanwhile, they're coming to kill you. It was the David Granger administration who took away the one laptop for family program from families in Guyana, stopped it, and stop that, and then right after bring in the tablets in jails so that the criminals can have tablets to communicate with their families. So I'm saying these things to show you that it was the David Granger administration who was always soft on crime, and they were frenzied with the criminals. But that stopped on August 2nd of last year. Remind you, Michael, that it was the David Granger administration that honored a terrorist, a convicted terrorist in the United States, was honored in the National Assembly under the David Granger administration. So we need to remember all these things. And once we remember these things, then we see which party has been an enabler to crime increase and which party has been on the attack, desperate and going all out to bring crime down in Guyana. Crime is not unique to Guyana, as everybody knows. Crime is happening all over the world. But which political party or which bunch of politicians are serious about bringing down crime? I would argue it's the People's Progressive Party, and based on the comments I made before, I made those comments to show you that it was the David Granger administration who were always seeming to side with criminals, or always on the sides of criminals. Mind you, Michael, my final point, it is the same David Granger administration who refused to go with what the Constitution said was supposed to happen once a no confidence motion was successful, completely ignoring our Constitution. So we have to remember all these things, and then you're going to see, and that is your answer right there of why crime is on the decrease, because the criminals know There's no longer a friend in the office of the president for criminals.
Yes, sir,
Suelle,
but I like
your thoughts? Yes.
yes, I'd like to add there, and you're correct, and I believe that we will continue to see a decrease in crimes. Our president's policy to restructure and rebrand, the police force. I remember him telling the recent police conference that, restructuring, repositioning, and rebranding, reorganizing, and retooling, even re-engineering, is necessary to be able to fight crime and to further bring the crime rate lower. And with his policies, I am convinced that next year, this time, or even by June or the end of the year, things will begin to get better. Our commander in chief has a plan, and he is not, as we know, he's not just a talker. He has been acting. He has been meeting with the police force, with our the Ghana Defense Force, and he has been integrally involved trying to link them, our armed forces, back to the communities, so that there's no longer this divide, us and them. And I believe that approach, linking them, bringing them back together, letting the communities know that police officers or men and women in the army are here to fight, to protect us, but they're also people, and to really bridge the gap. I believe that we'll begin to see even greater improvement, and very soon.
I also think it would be remiss of us not to mention the efforts, first of all, and the strategic approach to ensuring that this obtains by the political figurehead of this sector, and that would be Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Robson Ben, and his team, who have been, I am aware, who have been putting in the work as it relates to providing strategic and oversight and leadership over the security sector. And I also think the leadership of the Ghana Force, of the Ghana Police Force, the hierarchy of the Ghana Police Force has to be commended for their efforts and leadership they have been providing to their troops, under their soldiers, their troops on the ground, to ensure that this is achieved. But last but by no means least, the hard-working men and women of the Ghana Police Force, ably assisted by those in law enforcement and within the joint services framework, I believe they have to be commended. The hard-working and honest, those that are, and in the vast majority, hard-working and honest men and women of the Ghana Police Force. I believe first their efforts have to be recognized, and I'd like to publicly thank and commend them for the work that they have been doing to ensure that such an achievement obtains. So you have a decrease in, there have been significant decreases in major category and very troublesome categories of crime. And I believe it's something that is worthy of recognition, and I believe it is worthy of commendation to all those who have provided either leadership, the president and his administration, who have provided the resources. One often takes for granted the financial and other resources provided to law enforcement to ensure that they execute their responsibilities in a successful manner. And success has to be recognized as one of the most suitable words to describe these decreases in those categories of crime. any last comments on this particular issue? Because I want us to talk a little bit also before we close this program. Our time is fast running out. I also want us to talk a bit about national development and infrastructural development.
I'll let Suelle go.
No, I wanted to say that, our commander in chief sees development, and it was going to tie into to your next segment there, Mike. The development trajectory, and how important it is, how linked it is to our men and women in the force, and how well we manage our country, and the crime, and all of that. So I believe, as the country, as development grows, and things begin to change, it's a new day, a new environment. More and more, those rates will continue to go down. And yes, things will happen. And but with the leadership of our president, and like you rightfully said, our minister, and the leadership of the police force, I am convinced that we'll begin to see even better days.
Ossie?
Yeah, I want to agree with Suelle. Um, but how our president and the political party that is in government has already started, but crime has to be dealt with um, by multiple sectors, not just the Guyana Police Force and the government is responsible for bringing down crime in our communities. You have to have the involvement of the communities in reducing crime. You see, and you have to have a certain level of trust. Citizens must have a certain level of trust for those in law enforcement. And you are right, Michael, that the vast majority of the Guyana police force um, are people who are serious about their job and stuff like that. But we do have some PNC implants in there who are bent on creating mischief in the system, who I don't want to sound as though I'm bashing the Guyana police force. I'm trying to be very careful with my comments here. But I will just say this: they are uh, PNC implants within the Guyana police force who are working against the reduction of crime and those sort of things. And those elements need to be weeded out of the Guyana police force. The Guyana police force must have a healthy mix of the people. There are 6 races in Guyana, and we should see a reflection of that in the Guyana Police Force. So I think that the Guyana Police Force should start by going into the interior locations and recruiting our more and more of our Amerindian brothers and sisters who understand that community and who can go back into those community and effectively fight crime. Same thing with our Indo brothers and sisters in those communities and stuff like that. The Guyana Police Force must work to come to a place where the Guyana Police Force must be a reflection of Guyana. 6 races in Guyana, we must have a reflection and a healthy balance of all the races in the Guyana Police Force. Without the PNC implants, and let us put the security of our people first.
Let's also know, and I believe we all do, that there's a direct correlation between a stable social environment, a secure social environment, and national development. And I believe provided that this trend of decreases in certain categories of crime, provided that these decreases, the trend continues downward, I believe it will also lend as an enabler to ensuring that the development of Guyana continues and accelerates. And it is in that context I raise the issue. And I, unfortunately, I'll have to ask you both to be brief. It is in that context, however, I raise the issue of national development, visible development, as juxtaposed against rhetoric about a national commission to do this or a national strategy to do that. That is all we heard in 5 years between 2015 and 2020. We saw very few actions, we saw very few development, we saw very few incidents of improvement. I believe there may have been one or two incidents of improvement. I believe individuals learned over that 5 year period. You would have found individuals who learned the difference between Diwali and Pagua. But I'm talking about more tangible improvements and developments.
Yes, our roads, our president, our ministers have been out in the community. And I'm just not saying this because I like them, but I have been there. I have seen them interact with the people. And each time at every community, I have heard persons say, this is the first time a president, or is the first time a minister visited us. Improvement. Just this morning, I went walking and I saw a signboard just where the bridge will land, the new harbor bridge will land, already marked, sign up, and work has already started. The president walked that entire dam to ensure that it was strong enough, to check it out, to make sure that all the engineering and development aspects of things, it was in place. So things are happening. What I appreciate the most is that this is not, our ministers and our president are not a group of persons who are just, oh, we will do this for you, we will. But these are people who have been on the ground. They have hit the ground and they have hit it running. And we have begun to see change in our roads. We planned for bridges. We have seen new hotels coming up, sought turning. We have seen the mall. I know I have to stop soon. Just in regions three. In every region, something new has happened. And it's only been how many months? And I'm so excited because by the end of the year, let's give ourselves a year from today. We can look back and we can see visible, tangible change. I'm going to stop there.
Ossie, your parting words.
Like I said on the last program I was on,
I continue, Ossie, I continue to show off on you that you're not here to see it yourself. I could see it. You can't see it.
but we are experiencing it, or we are observing it here in the United States. We see the difference. We know because, for example, we have seen those of us who were not able to travel to Guyana for any reason during the elections campaign. We have seen the difference between the two leaders, the two presidential candidates at the time. You had one who was a king that you couldn't go close to. You saw him outriders and stuff like that. The whole works, man, looking like a president from a first world country. You can't go close to him. You got to take out pictures with a cardboard cutout of him. As a matter of fact, I know here in the United States, even some celebrities and politicians were more accessible to the ordinary man than David Granger was to the citizens of which he had the pleasure of serving. And you see the difference. One person referenced His Excellency Irfan Ali I don't remember what's the word, but he's always there showing up when our people are in need or are in grief, he shows up at these funerals and stuff like that to let our citizens know that the government is not disconnected from the grassroots, and that is commendable of Mr. Ali and the government in which he leads. That the ministers are fanning out, meeting the people. This is how Chedi Jagan. This is the type of People's Progressive Party that Chedi Jagan created. Like I said before, I remember, Chedi Jagan, unless he was not in the country, he was always at Freedom House every Saturday. And all you had to do to see Chedi Jagan is show up at Freedom House and become one of 35 persons to sign the list. And you could go upstairs and see the president and speak to the president of Guyana. And that is the type of thing that we're seeing happening again. The president is accessible. The government ministers are accessible, and this arbors well for the development. Our people now know that it is not a disconnection between king and ordinary man. They are all ordinary people. His Excellency has just been placed in that position to lead the country. And any single Guyanese, whether your skin color or not, you can reach out to His Excellency or ministers, and you can be assured that you will be given an opportunity or be listened to. And that is commendable. So we are happy here in the diaspora that Guyana is moving in the right direction. And we finally have a leader in Guyana who cares about the Guyanese people.
Very, very good point, Ossie. And on that note, we have to close. But before we do, I will always say, as we continue this and other programs, that the People's Progressive Party prides itself in servitude. It prides itself as servants of the people of Guyana. And as you correctly said, Ossie, again, we continue to hold fast to those principles inculcated in us by Dr. Jagan. On that note, thank you for joining us. Let's talk politics. I've been having a number of discussions with Ms. Suelle Findlay Williams and, of course, Mr. Ossie Rogers. Lady, gentlemen, I thank you both for being a part of this program, and I am looking forward to you joining me again sometime in the near future.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for inviting me and having me. And it's good to share this platform with you, Ossie.
Thank you very much, Suelle. Likewise, and Mr. Micheal Gordon, thank you. And please keep up the good work. And on this parting note, am I allowed to do this on this parting note? I just want the PNC to know that the race card is failing. More and more Afro-Guyanese and people who are not more and more Afro-Guyanese and other races are gravitating towards development. Hence, they are going and forming alliances with the People's Progressive Party.
Let's Talk Politics, a very special program brought to you by the People's Progressive Party. I'm your host, Micheal Gordon. Join my colleague, Edward Lynn, tomorrow at 8 p.m. I will be back with you on Friday and on Sunday. Until we meet again, do have a good night, and I'd like to thank those of you who have been looking at this program across the length and breadth of Guyana and in the diaspora. I thank you again. Good night.